Geography really has blessed Indiana. Located centrally at the confluence of both east-west and north-south corridors, Indiana's geographic relevance even predates European settlement. In this quick series, I'll detail how geography and history has set Indiana up to be the crossroads of America by rivers, rail, and road. And in this video, we're starting with rivers. Indiana is located at the convergence of three important navigable waterways, draining to either Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, or funneling into the Mississippi River. The first Europeans to enter Indiana did so from the north, following the St. Joseph River from Lake Michigan. French traders and missionaries began really traveling into Indiana from Quebec via the Great Lakes around the start of the 18th century. You see, after La Salle's riverine voyages south and the founding of New Orleans in 1718, the French shifted influence further south from Quebec to new sites along the Wabash, Ohio, and Mississippi rivers, seeking to increase Amerindian diplomacy and trade in hopes of deterring the gravity of the ascendant British in the east. Travel between the French settlements in Quebec and the French settlements in Louisiana went through Indiana, taking advantage of these extensive watersheds by using a series of crucial portages, Viking style. Known to local Amerindians for generations, these sites were hotspots of native settlement and were important trade junctions even before European presence. The closest point between two unconnected rivers, a portage was the easiest place for a party of explorers to clean and jerk their canoes above their heads, onto their shoulders, and carrying them overground to the other river. La Salle, the first European to enter Indiana, spent his first night along the St. Joseph River lost, separated from his Miami guide, trying to find the portage to the Kankakee River in the midst of a violent thunderstorm. Because using these portages, with just a handful of miles overland on foot, it was possible to sail a canoe from Quebec to New Orleans, shortening the continent considerably. A portage at South Bend connected the St. Joseph River in Lake Michigan with the Kankakee River, which drains into the Mississippi River. The creatively named town of Portage is named such as its location near the portage between Lake Michigan and the Little Calumet River. And the critical portage near Fort Wayne connected the St. Mary's River and Lake Erie with the Wabash and Mississippi rivers, a site so important that the French founded Fort Miami there around 1706. 100 years passed, Fort Miami would become Fort Wayne, and the number of American settlers filtering into Indiana ballooned after 1800. At the beginning of the state's existence, riverine shipping was still the easiest way to move goods and people, with new river ports exporting forestry and agricultural products along these natural highways. Ports such as Lawrenceburg, Madison, Jeffersonville, Evansville, and Vincennes were important logistical centers of Indiana for the state's first decades. And since not all rivers are created equal, riverine trade is naturally limited by a river's depth and width, a river only being navigable to its first fall line. But with the growth of steamboats and the completion of the Erie Canal in New York in 1825, the watersheds of the Great Lakes were finally directly connected to the Hudson River and the East Coast, bridging the previously fragmented Union and coupling eastern and western markets. This kicked off a period of canal fever in the greater U.S. and especially within Indiana itself. The federal government started building the Wabash and Erie Canal in 1827, spanning the length of the Wabash River and connecting the Ohio River watershed to Lake Erie via the Maumee River. Now, growing canal towns like Lafayette, Logansport, and Peru expanded where large-scale shipping was previously unable to reach. Now, producers in northern and central Indiana could sell directly to consumers in the east or emerging markets in the west. Not keen to be outdone by the feds, the Indiana state government in 1836 commissioned the Indiana Mammoth Internal Improvement Act. This act dictated the construction of the Whitewater Canal in the east, spanning the length of the Whitewater River, and opening up markets with Cincinnati and the Ohio River, alongside the Indiana Central Canal that would be built to connect the eastern Whitewater River and the western Wabash Canals, convening at and spanning the length of the shallow White River, making the still rural farm town of Indianapolis the central port city of the Hoosier State once and for all. But legislation with a name like that, and a scope that vast, was too much for the young state, and Indiana went bankrupt trying to complete it, finishing just 1/5 of the Whitewater Canal and mere bits of the Indiana Central Canal in Indianapolis before insolvency. The aftermath of such would ruin the infrastructure-based Whig political base, and ultimately bring about the drafting of a new state constitution. None of that would even matter in the end, as by 1840, railroads had progressed beyond experimental eastern prototypes into a lucrative nationwide industry. Just years after going bankrupt building canals, Indiana was crisscrossed by new privately constructed rail lines, much quicker and more efficient than small trade skiffs. Indiana's extensive canal and riverine trade network was set on a path of obsolescence by these new enterprises. So follow along in the next video, as I continue on to the second R of interconnectivity, when I cover Indiana's place as the rail crossroads of America.